Welcome everybody to InDesign Level 1. This is CS 72.11a. I'm Donna Caldwell and I'm going to be your instructor for this semester. I wanted to use this first session as just a quick intro to the class and try to set up some of the logistics for the class. Let me go to a file here. All right, as you know from the email that I sent, I was hired very recently to teach the InDesign class. So there are several things regarding the administrative processes that I do not have clearance yet. So I don't have a CADE account. I don't have an instructor website. We are waiting for clearance of that. And in the meantime, as I mentioned in the email, Dave is going to be nice enough to be communicating with you through email, and then you are more than welcome to contact me directly through a Gmail account that I set up until I'm able to get a Santa Rosa Community College email. So I have this document here. This is information I've gleaned from other instructors. Some of it will not be applicable until I get the CADE website. But I wanted to make sure that everyone was familiar with some of the information here. I've either given this to you already in an email or you'll be getting it very quickly. So just to start out, I wanted to say a few words about myself. Though this is my first time teaching an online class for a semester-length InDesign course, I've been teaching desktop publishing, electronic publishing for over 20 years, and most of that time has been through Adobe applications, InDesign, FrameMaker, InCopy, Illustrator, and a little bit of Photoshop. So I'm familiar with training, but I am used to seeing people in front of me and looking for those cues that people will express on their faces. So I'm going to be getting used to a lot of new things, and I'm looking for feedback from you if I'm moving too fast, if there's not enough detail. Please let me know, and we'll just try to correct things as we go. The subject we're going to be studying is InDesign, and we couldn't have a more complex program, but also one that is more fun. InDesign is such a blast to use. Every time I teach a class, people tell me they just wish they had more opportunities to use it. It's a page layout program, and after I get through this intro information, we will get into where InDesign fits into the publishing spectrum, how it is different from other applications, and we'll just start going with using InDesign. But like I said, I wanted to get some of this preliminary information out of the way. My understanding is that you will have access to the labs if you do not have your own copy of InDesign CS6. I'll be distributing most of these files as templates, and you should be able to open them up in 5 and 5.5. If anyone has any problems with that, please let me know. I would not suggest earlier versions, though CS4 will work. Beyond that, it gets really difficult because Adobe changed the saving back function. So we can really only go back to 4, and there were some major changes in 5 that will make the look and feel different enough that you may not feel comfortable trying to work in that version. Again, if you have any special concerns about that, just let me know. I would suggest that everybody have a flash drive so that if you are working on anybody else's machine or you are working on the school machine, that you are able to move those files quickly and efficiently back to another source. I've got information in this document that I pulled from other instructors that provide more information about where you can buy the software. Adobe has several ways that you can purchase InDesign. You can purchase it as a single point product, which I don't recommend if you have the funds to go to one of the creative suites. And the reason I say that is the creative suite is only as much as 2 applications within the suite for the most part. So once you've purchased 2 pieces of software in a suite, you've pretty much paid for the suite. So I would recommend either going with the standard design or going with the premium. And we'll talk about those Creative Suite products and what products are within them. In the very last release, Adobe started selling applications through what's called the Creative Cloud. And there's a lot of misinformation about the Creative Cloud. Basically, you are leasing the software. There are advantages and disadvantages to this. The advantage is that you have access to the entire master collection. That means almost all the web products, the publishing products in the Creative Suite, lots of little extras like Muse and Edge and all these up-and-coming products that are being created and distributed by Adobe. And you are not using these products on the web. You are actually downloading them to your computer, but your computer has to check in on the web periodically to make sure that you are still a current leasing member. So you pay a certain amount of money per month, and if you stop paying, then your applications will cease to work. But don't be under the impression that you are actually working with these in the cloud. That wouldn't be practical these days, and it's not going to be practical for quite a while because we can't guarantee that we have a web connection. We don't have a guarantee that we will have a connection that's fast enough to run products that are this complex. I'll go online and talk a little bit more about that. The best deal for Adobe products is the educational discount. It is unbelievable. You are able to purchase the Creative Suite. I have been here like the Design Premium for $359, and that program is well over $1,000. You just can't. I know people who take a class just so they can buy the Creative Suite through the educational discount. So however you're going to acquire the software, you'll need to do that because you're going to need to have access to this program quite a bit, obviously, to do the homework and to follow along if you'd like to on another monitor, or to be able to practice anything that we're doing. Recommended resources. So I will be using the InDesign class notes. The other InDesign Level 1 instructor will be using these notes as well. They were developed by Cindy Reese, who developed the InDesign program at Santa Rosa, and she has since retired. We are not allowed to update those notes, and they are for CS 5.5, but I will discuss any version differences or anything that I believe could cause confusion or that I have a different opinion about. It's just that because I was hired so recently, there was no way I could develop an entire course. So mine will be a coursing process. You can purchase the hard copy or download a PDF from lulu.com. I think the download is $10 if you want a copy of it. It's up to you. It is not going to be required, but if you'd like to have these notes to follow along with, please feel free to get that copy. In addition to that, if you feel like you want a reference book, the other InDesign Level 1 instructor is recommending Real World Adobe InDesign CS6 by Olaf Kavern and David Blattner and Bob Ringhurst. These books are huge and they are expensive, and of course they are partially outdated the moment a new version comes out. So again, I am not making this mandatory. If you're the type of learner who wants to have a book sitting next to him that he can or that you can reference, that's great. But if not, don't worry about it. I'm going to be supplying lots of websites with free information. One of the things I'd like you to think about, depending on the type of learner you are, is to think about signing up for a semester with lynda.com. They have great deals for students. And if you contact lynda.com, I think there's a deal where for $10 a month you can have access to 2 courses. I'll make sure that I get the facts exactly on that. But I think you get access to unlimited access to 2 courses, all the class files, and all the recordings. So for the next 4 months, for $40, you'll have an incredible amount of information that you can go back over again and again. All the instructors are wonderful on lynda.com, especially the ones for InDesign, so I would fully recommend that. And it's just lynda.com. Most people I know love the tutorials. They feel that it's incredibly professional. So just consider that. All right, getting down to class check-in. At some point you are going to have to officially check into this class, but because I don't have a class website right now, or an instructor website, you are not going to be able to check in until we can get through this. We're waiting for my fingerprints to be cleared and they still haven't received notification. The system is just really slow right now. So we're going to postpone that and we're going to move on. Accessibility advisory, students who have limited vision need to consult or should consult an instructor at a DRD or a DRD specialist before enrolling in the online section of the course. And I will be given notice that I need to do a closed caption. And there are things we need to do for anyone who has any kind of a disability. So please make sure that you contact the right people at the college, and then I will be informed on what I have to do to make sure that you guys get the information that you want in the way you need it. All right, moving down from there, homework. There will be some sort of lab that I will create for you to do every week. It will be due Sunday by midnight, and it will need to be posted to the class website. Of course, since we don't have a class website, you will not be able to turn in homework until that is set up. My recommendation is that you continue to do the homework every week so that when it comes time that that posting is available, I'll give everybody a few days to get them up there, but you'll just have to load them because they will already be complete. And there are instructions in this about how to upload that information, which I have pulled from other instructors. I'm going to post everybody's final PDF, which is going to be the format you're going to submit the homework in, into some sort of a web gallery so that everybody can see everybody else's documents. And I don't want anybody to feel nervous about this. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to get inspired by everybody else's work. I am not a formally trained graphic designer. I got into this business in a very different way. I was actually an English major, and I graduated from college and got a job as managing editor for an Apple publication. But it was a very small magazine, and I had to type up the magazine, lay it out, deal with the publisher, and I fell in love with the tools of creating this stuff and instead of writing it. So I moved into that side of the business and have been there ever since. And I've been doing a lot of template design for over a couple decades, but I'm always inspired by creative souls, and I expect many of you are planning on becoming graphic designers. So awe us with your creativity. I'm sure all of us will enjoy your work and be inspired. For those of you who are going to become production artists, or you're going to be helping out a small company with any type of promotional information, this class is awesome for you as well, because we are going to be learning how to do things the right way. And sometimes you don't have to be a graphic designer to need those tools. In fact, sometimes you need them more so than the graphic designer, and I'll be talking more about that later. Testing and grading policy, this will include that information, so feel free to glance over it. And of course, the grading here is listed. You are all invited to take this class as pass, no pass, or pass fail. I know that the other instructor has on her website that she recommends doing it pass fail because you only need a C grade, I think, for it to be a pass. And then that way you're not so stressed out about getting an A or a B, and it won't impact your GPA. But anyway, you guys know more about that probably than I do, so please feel free to handle that any way you think is best for you. All right, let's move on to InDesign. One last thing I want to mention, how I think we're going to do the class as it stands right now is that I will have recorded lectures for you by Tuesday morning. They will be chopped up into chunks of 30 minutes or 40 minutes so that you don't have to sit through an entire recording at one time, 2 hours. I think that gets a little long. And you won't have to, if you have to walk away, you won't have to come back and try to fast forward to that place or find where you left off. So I'm hoping this will work better. Of course, I want your feedback about that. So 2 hours of the 3 hours required lecture will be pre-recorded. Then on Thursday night from 7 to 8, I will record a live session, and this gives students a chance to attend the class. I'm thinking of offering some sort of extra credit, small but some extra credit, to try to encourage people to attend that. I will have planned activities for that hour, but if anyone has questions about information that we've covered so far that week, I am more than happy to go back and provide more detail on anything. So your participation is going to influence that third hour of lecture. My office hours will be the hour before that live lecture, so that'll be from 6 to 7, since the lecture will be from 7 to 8. This is on Thursday night. There might be times where I have to be out of town training, or I'm training at a site that's going to take me too long to get back. But I will try to make sure I notify everybody ahead of time about the office hours and let you know what other times that you can contact me. Okay, I think that's enough of the logistics. Let's move on to InDesign. All right, I have open here the book that if you decide you want to purchase it, this is the Stepping Out with Adobe InDesign CS5, which was written by Cindy Reese. Again, this is not required, but I'm going to start with this, and we're going to move through the first couple of pages. Again, this is still part of the intro, but we're going to get more specific to the applications in our computers. First off, I want to be sure that everyone knows I don't care whether you are working on a Macintosh or a Windows machine. I work on both. The only reason I'm teaching from a PC right now is because my Mac is running older versions of InDesign. For some of my clients, my PC is running CS6, so that's why I'm working on a PC. But I love working on both. And Adobe is very aware that we have people in the field working on both platforms. So I want you to be sure that you know that there's no prejudice towards one or the other. A couple things you're going to want to know, depending on what platform you're on, is that often I'll say something about the control key, and usually that's going to equate to the command key on the Macintosh. That's the Apple key, or the helicopter, used to call it the little helicopter symbol key. The Alt key on the PC is going to equate to the Option key, and the Enter key on the PC will equate to the Return key. Remember that on the PC we have an Enter key that is in the middle of our keyboard, or actually on the edge of our typing keyboard, but if you have an extended keypad that has numbers, that is going to have a different function than the Enter key that is sitting directly above the Shift key. So I'll make sure that I emphasize that if we're going to use that for some sort of a keyboard equivalent. The other big difference between these two applications is where some of the commands are on the far left menu. On the PC, preferences are always under the Edit menu, but on the Mac, an application's preferences are always going to be under the InDesign menu. And there are going to be commands underneath the Apple menu that will be in a different place on the Windows machine. So hopefully I will remember to make a comment about that, and it won't take you long to understand the differences. And anytime I say something on the PC, you're going to be able to find that quickly on the Mac. Let me know if I'm not making enough comments about that. All right. Let's talk a little bit about what a page layout program is. For many years we've been talking about desktop publishing, but really what we're talking about is a program that does page layout, which means that it combines different types of media into the same file. So we have a program that will edit photographs. We have a program that creates logos using Bezier curves. We have a program that's great for writing and editing text. The InDesign user does not have to be necessarily an expert in any of these unless your job requires it. But you are going to have to get that information from those people so that you can place them or import them into the InDesign file. So you may be getting text from Microsoft Word, or maybe Google Docs, or even Notepad. You may get a Photoshop image that was edited after downloading it from a digital camera. Or someone may have scanned a photo and they're giving you a JPEG, or they're giving you a ping. You may receive a company logo that was done in Illustrator, or you may have clip art or charts that were created in Visio. But whatever the case may be, you're going to have to get them into InDesign so that you can create business cards, flyers, reports, books, magazines. Even today now, starting with 5.5, InDesign is much better suited for creating ebooks and also creating apps for the Mac and for the PC. We won't be getting into that in this class, but if anyone ends up taking the advanced class, we will be talking about some of the new technologies. All right, how many page layout programs are there right now? Adobe PageMaker has been out there for a long time. It was created by a company by Aldus, and Adobe purchased it from Aldus so that it could get some market share. At that point, QuarkXPress owned the market. And in fact, over 20 years ago, I was a QuarkXPress instructor, but once I started working in InDesign, I took QuarkXPress off my machine, and I've never been tempted to place it back on there. But that would be probably InDesign's biggest competitor. Microsoft Publisher is out there, but it's a very low-end layout program. I work quite a bit in FrameMaker. My technical clients use that because it has features that no other application has really been able to catch up on. 20 years ago, it had features that some features that InDesign is just now getting, and it specializes in long documents with lots of generated files, table of contents, index, list of figures, list of tables. InDesign can now create some of these, and I have clients who are asking me to move from FrameMaker to InDesign only because they don't want to pay for that extra program. FrameMaker is not part of the Creative Suite, but InDesign is. So if your writers are already having to edit screen captures in Photoshop, they're already creating charts in Illustrator, they'd rather use InDesign. And it's only been since about CS4 or 5 that I even considered that for some of my clients. And so far it's been working pretty well. So InDesign is part of the Creative Suite, and that's, I was mentioning this earlier, but that's one of the things that really pushed InDesign forward. It's a little bit like Microsoft Office. I don't know anybody who is in love with Word or necessarily Outlook or Excel. They're fine programs, but the reason people use them is they're part of an Office package that if you purchase it, you might as well use the other applications instead of going out and purchasing more. The Creative Suite is just like that. It pulls together some of the most popular electronic publishing software in the industry, and it sells it for a price where you get all of these applications and their upgrades. So for the Creative Suite, we can have Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Acrobat, and if you buy the premium package, you'll also get Dreamweaver. Some of these other web tools are included. Let's see, where do I want to go from there? All right, so that tells you what InDesign is, but let's talk about what type of a program it is. I'm just going to fill in a few holes and apologize for anybody who is really savvy about what InDesign is compared to other types of programs. But I want, for those people who are not familiar with what's the difference between InDesign, Photoshop, QuarkXPress, and Acrobat, let me just go into a couple of the concepts. I often have students in my classes where I'm rattling off these terms and someone finally is brave enough to ask me, I don't even know what the difference between these programs are. So let me bring up a file here, which I hope will help everybody. This file contains two types of files. One of them is a photo, rasterized image, and the other is a vector image, and that relates directly to Photoshop and Illustrator. A raster image editing program is for photographs, obviously, but anything that's been scanned that has been digitized. And the main difference here is if I zoom in on this photo, you'll see that the photo is actually broken up into hundreds, thousands, and sometimes millions of little individual pixels that give us the illusion of a continuous tone, which is what photographs used to be when we used to take them with non-digital equipment. So as I zoom back out, you can see that your eye starts to blur these dots, and all of a sudden we start seeing an image. The more pixels, the higher the resolution is for that particular photo. And this is going to become important when we start placing photos. We're going to talk about what resolutions we have to have in order for that photo to work in an InDesign document, depending on the output that that document is designed for. I'm going to move down here, and we have another image that looks like a photograph, but it's actually created with what we call Bezier curves or vector lines. And vector art is created instead of with pixels, little tiny dots of color. Instead, it's created with mathematical information. And if you have a vector image, and I zoom in, and let me just change my display performance here to high quality. By default, InDesign uses typical. This provides a pseudo PostScript, basically processor on screen. But you can see that it doesn't matter how far I zoom in, I get these nice, hard, clean edges. The beauty of vector art is that no matter how high the resolution of a printer is, or no matter how big someone blows it up, it's always going to be at the highest resolution possible for the device that you're working on or the printer that you send it to. This is why vector art is used so much with logos, because when you design a logo, you don't know what people are going to be doing with it. The last thing you want to see is a logo that has been rasterized in a JPEG, and then it gets distorted, it looks fuzzy. So we want to try to avoid that. So Photoshop is the program that's going to edit these pixels. Illustrator is what's going to edit the vector art that we see in this image down here. You're going to find that in the Creative Suite there's a lot of overlap between these applications. It didn't start out that way, but as the Creative Suite has graduated from version to version, Adobe is trying to, number one, make the interfaces as close as possible. So let's say you know InDesign. You could open up Photoshop and say, okay, I feel comfortable with this application. I think I can work in it. I recognize this panel. I recognize this command. I recognize this tool. But at the same time, they're also allowing you to use certain tools from other applications in that same application. For example, InDesign gives me all of these vector tools, and it gives me a pen tool. These are inherently the tools that you would want to use Illustrator for. On the Photoshop side, we were provided, I think in the last version, the effects panel from Photoshop. So this allows me to go in and say, okay, I have a particular photo, and I'm going to run a particular effect for that photo. So maybe I want an inner shadow, a drop shadow, a bevel, and emboss. I don't have to go out and do that inside of Photoshop and then come back into InDesign. There are going to be things that we obviously have to go out to Illustrator and to Photoshop to get those really pristine effects that we want, but there's a lot we can do right here in InDesign. So we'll be covering some of those tools as well. All right, so we've talked about Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. What about Acrobat? A lot of people I hear refer to Acrobat as Adobe. I have Adobe version such and such. And it's actually called Acrobat. And this document is being viewed in Acrobat, though it was created in InDesign. When you create an application, or when you create a file in a native application, and we call that either source, sorry about that, we call that in either source or a native application. you have to have all of the source material that was used in that application. For example, I created, let's say, this document. Cindy did, but let's just say that this document was created. There are photos that were imported. There are fonts that were used. And these are all linked to the InDesign file. If I send that file to someone and they open it up and I didn't send all the links and all the fonts, the individual receiving that file is not going to see the same thing I see. So what we do is we export this to a document format, which is a global format, PDF, portable document format, that includes and incorporates, basically nests everything into this format that I can send off as a single file. And I will see the fonts the way they look. I will see the images the way they looked in InDesign. And it's just a great way to transport your ideas while not allowing someone to edit that document to the same degree that you could have if you were editing it in InDesign. And this is how you're going to submit all of your homework assignments. Acrobat is often thought of as just a viewing format, but it can do so much more. There are all kinds of things we can do inside of Acrobat. We've got an entire panel of tools that allow us to do everything from print production to edit the content. We can make mass changes across documentation. It's a really rich program, and if anybody's ever interested in that, that's something else that I would suggest you look into learning more about. Wherever you work, you're going to impress people, I guarantee you, if you can show them that this program is here for more than that. All right, I'm not going to go into Dreamweaver because at this point we're not going to really touch on the web applications, but Dreamweaver was a program that was purchased by Adobe and they've continued to develop it. And it is specifically addressing people's web needs. All right, so there's a little bit of an intro on desktop publishing, what InDesign is, how it fits in to the scope of this entire field. And when we meet next in the next recording, I will be discussing information specific to InDesign, and we'll start getting to know a little bit about the interface, how it works, and get into some of the tools. So until the next time, I'm signing off. Bye.